Kobe Bryant's widow may be compelled to take part in a psychiatric exam as part of her lawsuit against LA County. Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others were killed in a helicopter crash. Vanessa Bryant filed a civil lawsuit in September 2020 seeking undisclosed damages after photos of the helicopter crash that killed her husband and daughter were leaked.
Court filings show that attorneys for LA County argue they need a psychiatrist to evaluate Vanessa Bryant's trauma. The Bryant's attorneys say an involuntary 8-hour psychiatric examination is unreasonable. And here now to help us sort it all out, the legal issues for Bryant and the county is attorney James DeSimone. Welcome, James. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, first of all, can the county compel Vanessa Bryant and family members to undergo psychiatric evaluations in this case, and how can that even be possible?
Well, ultimately, that is up to the judge, but the federal rules of civil procedure do permit a party to make a motion to compel a psychiatric examination where someone has placed their mental condition in issue in a case. So it's possible. Now, they're not trying to say that she's unfit to be a plaintiff or anything like that. They are saying they need these psychiatrists to parse out how much of her emotional distress and mental injury is due to the dissemination of these photos versus, of course, the tragic loss of her husband and for the children, their father.
And James Bryant's lawsuit accuses first responders of sharing pictures of her husband and her daughter's remains, and that she fears her other children could one day see those images. She also claims severe emotional distress. How strong of a case do you think she has legally?
I think she has a very strong case. I mean, our civil rights law do protect those type of images from being disseminated publicly by a law enforcement agency, such as the Los Angeles County Sheriff's. And that is a big fear. I know my clients who suffered wrongful death cases. They do not want those videos, for the most part, on television or on the internet, especially when they don't want their children to see it. So that type of emotional distress is very strong. Now, how much would a jury award in a case for fair and reasonable compensation? Well, juries are asked to use their common sense. And you don't need a psychiatrist when it comes to evaluating common sense on someone's loss. So the county's motion may be a little burdensome and may be denied here in this particular instance.
And James, speaking of the county, Bryant's lawyers say LA County is trying to bully her, while attorneys for the county say they have great sympathy for her. So can both these be true?
Look, when you're in litigation, anybody who files a lawsuit knows that, it's common for the defendants to do things through the legal process to intimidate plaintiffs. And you really just have to stand up to that. Let's say the court orders Vanessa Bryant to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. She talks to a psychiatrist, she takes some tests. A lot of times these psychiatric evaluations can backfire on defendants because the psychiatric evaluations actually come out in favor of the plaintiffs in a situation like this, where you're naturally expected to suffer emotional distress. So yes, there's some bullying and intimidation going on, and they may feel some sympathy, but these lawyers are out there to win a case and protect the county in this situation.
And as you see it, James, what are the strongest arguments for both Vanessa Bryant and for the county?
From Vanessa Bryant's perspective, she says, look, I'm not claiming some psychiatric injury. I'm not saying that I'm suffering from some chronic depression from this. I have the emotional distress that is reasonable to ensue from this type of dissemination of photos that an ordinary person would suffer, and that a jury can evaluate that using their reason and common sense based on the evidence as they're instructed to do. They are not using a psychiatric expert. They said that in their papers. We're not designating a psychiatric expert. So a lot of times in courts, if the plaintiff's not designating a psychiatric expert, then the defendants don't get one either. But the defendants have a strong body of case law under federal law that in this instance, where she's alleging that it's intentional infliction of emotional distress, that there's case law, precedent, published decisions that show that a judge can, in his or her discretion, order that she be subjected to the mental examination. So a lot of times this boils down to a judgment call of a particular judge, and we'll see what Judge Walter does with this.
And in very few words here, James, looking ahead with your experience, what are your predictions? How will this end?
Well, look, most cases get resolved. We know that. However, This is a case where reasonable minds might differ just how harmed Vanessa Bryant and her family is from the dissemination of photos that went to many different individuals in the community, but haven't, to our knowledge, been published on the internet yet. But that can change in a moment, we know, when you deal with something on the internet. If something gets on, how it spreads like wildfire. So in this particular case, it may very well be that Vanessa Bryant and her attorneys need to go to the mat and have a jury evaluate what's fair compensation for the harm that she and her family has suffered.
All right, well said. Attorney James DeSimone, thank you so much for being with us and bringing us your expertise this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
you.